So thank you again to everyone who joined today, who is joining today. I just wanted to remind everybody that we have several upcoming webinars we hope you'll consider hopping on. One is on our IAD series, our Inclusion, Access, Equity, and Diversity series tomorrow. We have another one with a brand new series we're starting on Teach CTE efforts. And then we have the part 2 of today's webinar coming up in February and the part 3 in April. So mark your calendars and register for these events on our website right here. And we do always record and post the links after on that same website. So should you feel that you need to share that with anybody, please feel free. With that, I know we have a lot of non-members and members alike on here. We just wanted to give a shout out to our organization at the national level. We hope you, if you are not a member, will consider joining today. We are the largest national education association related to CTE. So please consider joining through that link today. With that, I am thrilled to introduce our presenters here today. I'm going to introduce Jill, our moderator, and she will take a moment to introduce the rest of our panelists today. But Dr. Jill Renucci, sorry, Jill, I'm not very good at pronunciations, is a college and career readiness advocate and has an extensive background in career and technical education as administrator and teacher. She's held district positions in CTE in Arizona and Texas, as well as serving as an assistant principal in Arizona. Additionally, she taught for 7 years at the University of Northern Iowa and 3 years at the University of Akron. Recently, she's been consulting for several CTE companies to help them align resources to state standards, state initiatives, industry recognized credentials, and certifications and academic integration. Jill believes every CTE course must provide premier curricular resources to promote successful student outcomes. She earned a PhD in teaching and teacher education curriculum and instruction and education leadership from the University of Arizona, an MS in sport psychology, and a BS in education with K-12 certifications in several core and CTE content areas. So I will hand it over to you, Jill. Thank you so much for being here today. And thank you to all of our panelists. We are very grateful.
Megan, it's a pleasure to be here today. And thank you for that introduction. And it makes me sound probably as old as I feel, but I actually feel pretty young because I'm in CTE. Just so that everybody knows, again, this is going to be a 3-part series. Today, we have a very distinguished panel of experts in industry. And what we're going to be talking about today is why it is so adamantly important that educators integrate academics into their CTE courses. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen really quickly here. And I just have a couple of slides that I'm going to present, hopefully get it in presenter mode here. And the first slide, whoops. Why is it so important? And again, we're during this 3-part series, I think what we're going to be looking at is we know that we need academics in our CTE courses because of the relevance that the rigor of academics adds into the skill elements that we're teaching our students. We also know that part of the key to this is our local entities as well as our state entities. CTE is a portion of district agencies as well as state agencies. And so we need to work with those agencies as well as our teachers to make sure that they understand why it's so necessary. And today you're going to hear from industry experts on why industry knows that this is so important, and they can validate all of the reasons why we need to integrate academics. We're also, just so that everybody's aware who's on this webinar, this is not the webinar that's going to give the instruction on exactly how to integrate academics. We're forming at the national level a committee, which I already have a partial committee of people who are experts in this area, that we will be formulating ways in which we can help teachers integrate academics or help teachers where they're already using curricular resources that integrate academics, really make this stand out to students and make it relevant to students so that when they begin their careers, and you're going to hear in part 3 of the series from students that really have been in courses who realize why academics have made them as successful as they are today. So that's what this whole discussion is going to center around today, as well as in the 2 webinars that will follow this one. So we want to make sure that students really and teachers really recognize this and can really emphasize the importance. So our distinguished panels for today, we're going to go alphabetically, and I'm going to start with Deborah Lamoth, who's from the Southern Regional Education Board. She's in leadership and training. Then we'll continue on with Shabri Raja, who's the CEO of NEPRIS, Alan Satomer, who's the CEO of Mastery Coding, and then Scott Springer, who's Harbor Freight's Tools for Schools. He consults, and he's also an advertiser. And as each of these panelists speak, I'm going to stop sharing because we're going to start with Deborah. As they speak, they're also going to tell you how their educational background as well as educational experience brought them to their current position. So Deborah.
Thank you, Jill. It is an honor to be here with all of the other panelists and to be able to address some of the questions and concerns you may have. I started my career as a CTE educator in a shared time center in Oakland County, Michigan. I moved from there to a consultant in curriculum instruction and assessment at the Oakland ISD in Oakland County, and moved from there to the CTE supervisor in the same ISD situation. I moved, when I retired from that position, I wasn't really ready to retire. And I quickly turned around and started beginning work with the Southern Regional Education Board. I have been with the Southern Regional Education Board as a leadership coach and trainer since 2014. The vast experience in working with a company like SREB is that I get to visit schools all over the country, and particularly in the area of CTE. So I am able to share experiences that I have seen that are valid, workable experiences and practices with my other constituencies in other states. And so I'm very honored to have a lot of CTE friends across the country.
Thank you so much. Shabri.
Thank you, Jill. First of all, I apologize. I'm in my car. It's not the ideal background, but hopefully it's not much of a distraction for the group. Thank you all for having me here. And I am Shabri Raja. I'm co-founder and CEO of NEPRIS. We are an education technology company with a platform. We're helping connect industry professionals virtually into classrooms to help kids see what that world of work looks like and hear firsthand from working professionals. My background has always been in education technology. My undergrad was in electrical engineering, master's in computer science, and an MBA. And then I worked for Texas Instruments Education Technology Group for a number of years. From there, I was quite involved around the country with groups that were focused on STEM education for girls and minorities. When I got involved with a lot of these different groups around the country, we saw a common theme that industry, higher education, K-12, all these leaders and influencers were gathering and meeting up to discuss how do we prepare students for the future of work. And while there was lots of great discussions and good intention, there was not really a clear path of how industry was going to engage with the classroom. So saw an opportunity, given my background coming from the corporate world, understanding the education world, and also coming from a technical background, it was the perfect opportunity to say, how can we use technology and build tools to help educators, especially CTE educators, connect industry and education. And that's how NEPRIS was born 8 years back. Today, we're pretty much in over 20 states, working with thousands of companies and helping them connect with the classroom. And during this process is when I met Jill. So I'm excited for the conversation today and looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shabri. Alan.
Hi, everybody. I'm Alan Satomer. I come out of the classroom myself. I actually was California's Teacher of the Year a while ago. And my early career was I was an English language arts teacher, and I had written a lot of books. I'd written books for Scholastic and for Disney and things like that. And I saw literacy as critical to student success in the workforce. It just, there was clearly a correlation between your ability to read and write well and your ability to obtain sort of a career instead of just sort of a job. And what happened is that as technology emerged and things like that, I sort of have a front row seat. I'm in Los Angeles to technology exploding. And I saw that computer science and coding and things like that were literacy in their own right there. And so I got the crazy idea to leave the classroom and start a company and teach kids how to literally trying to break the cycle of intergenerational poverty by giving them skills in emerging technologies. And that is sort of the soul of what we sort of do. And it's all about pragmatism. So that's the one thing that is, I'm sort of a transplant over to the world of CTE because I come from English language arts. So if you're on a campus, ELA, we got all the love, English and math, right? They're always the first ones. They get the financing, they get the money, they get everybody's attention. And CTE sometimes was very much like that, redheaded stepchild, right? And I always was like, these kids, they need pragmatic, real world skills and tools and things like that. So I've always been a huge supporter of that. And I think that the notion of you can have your cake and eat it too. And I think we're going to get to that in today's webinar.
Thank you, Alan. And Scott, bring us home on those skilled trades.
Hey, everybody. Scott Springer here. I'm in Denver, Colorado, and I am an education consultant and advisor for Harbor Freight Tools for Schools. Harbor Freight is a program of the Smith Foundation. Eric Smith founded Harbor Freight, probably over 40 years ago. And he has now over 1,000 stores around the country selling tools. And he saw a need for skilled trades and the rebirth of skilled trades. As we all know, the 80s and 90s, after the Nation at Risk report, CTE in general, and especially skilled trades, was in trouble and got cut back around the country. So Eric started this arm of the foundation to focus on skilled trades education in public high schools, believing that access to skilled trades education gives students quality pathways and higher graduation rates, good jobs, and a workforce really our country needs. So our work is to support skilled trades. As far as my background, I started as a band director almost 40 years ago. And I was in Denver schools about 34 years, and I did my whole career in education there. And I switched around quite a bit, started in music, and then got into CTE, and then got into administration, and finished my career as a principal of the CTE Center and Early College, as well as the CTE Director of Denver Public Schools. And I always used to tell my students, you never know where your career is going to take you. And, we all see the stats of changing jobs X amount of times in your lifetime. And we've probably done very similar things. And we always talk about transferable skills, and the academic piece is critical to that. So I'll be sharing a little more later. Just a high level of some of the strategies we used in skilled trades when I was working in the schools. And I think the next webinar, I'll probably get more in the weeds on it. So glad to be here.
Thank you so much. And I'm seeing a little bit in the chat right now. We are going to be saving some time at the end for a Q&A session. So please feel free to post questions in the chat, and we will get to those after we have each of our questions that I'm going to share right now. So what we're going to concentrate on today are these questions. And the first one is, how can teachers, because this is a really important piece, how can teachers or instructors capitalize on curriculum and resources that already contain academic content? And what I mean by that is a lot of resources today, especially in our world of COVID at the moment, a lot of curriculum contains academic content. But how do we get our teachers to understand, realize, and make that academic content really relevant to our students? Alan, do you have any ideas on that, perhaps?
Yeah, I think that, if it's not relevant, I mean, these kids will cut off their nose to spite their own face. We kids are like, who aren't doing well in school, and if you threaten them, if you shame them, if you belittle them, right, they will just be like, an F in math, I'm failing English, I'm failing science, I'm failing history. You can't come at today's student with a fear-based approach. So my belief is that what is critical is, and I'm going to share my screen if that's okay with everybody right now, is the notion of it's really about meeting them where their passions exist. Okay, so it's been kind of the soul of any student I've ever been able to reach in my own life, any person with whom I try to work, communicate. It's like, what are you into? What winds your clock type of thing? And everybody has something. So we tapping that passion enables you to like lift the hood. How is this stuff made? How is it built? What are the designs? Things like that right there. And once you see that, that's when they can tinker. That's when the skills, and this is really where I feel that CTE gets it right, is because it's not just about teaching skills and funneling them into high stakes testing that has no real relevance beyond the K-12 universe. CTE is all about the certs, is get the certification, let a kid graduate with a +1 or +2, and that avails them of the opportunity to step into careers and or college to go refine and things like that. So in my estimation, Jill, that if you win the heart, the mind will follow. And I think that that's probably one of the things that is a little bit undervalued in today's just world of academics, with the focus on test scores.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Shabri, I know you're working with industries across the board, thousands of companies. What are you seeing today with the academic integration as far as how they can reach the teachers as well as the students when they're doing one-on-ones with classrooms?
No, absolutely, Jill. I mean, we work with hundreds and thousands of companies, and there is a common theme across the board, across employers. Like, I mean, we are also hiring and employing people. So as another employer and seeing so many employers and communicating with them on a daily basis, really, the common theme you'll hear is that it's this balance of technical skills plus soft skills, right? And I don't want to call it soft skills. I'm going to call it human skills, right? So when you really delve deeper into what those human skills are, everybody here knows what most of them are: problem solving, creativity, leadership, all of these. But I really want to hone in on two of the human skills that really matter and tie well to academic content, right? One is analytical and reporting skills, and two is communication. So when you talk about analytical and reporting skills, right? Today, like, the world is all about data. Okay, you can be in a manufacturing pathway in a CTE course heading towards some kind of a certification, but really, what does that job entail, right? We work with General Motors, and as a plant manager at General Motors, you can be a plant manager or you can be a technician, but you, at the end of it today, it's all about AI and robots. So what are these machines spitting out? Data. How do you analyze data? You need the math skills, right? And so that's, you take manufacturing, data is everywhere. You take healthcare, all of the patient data, everything is driven everything is all data, and you have to analyze it. You have to come up with a way to make meaningful conclusions from all of this data, no matter what your job is, right? It's not enough to say just, okay, I'm a software engineer. Only programmers and software engineers need to know how to analyze data. If you're a manager, if you're right now in my job, right? My background is in computer science. I'm spending more and more time on the business side now as a CEO. All I do all day long is analyzing data. I'm in Excel spreadsheets all day long, right? Whether it is forecasting for the next year. I work with my sales team. What does my sales team do? They analyze data. They're looking at numbers for sales forecasting. We have a finance team, but finance team is not the only one that's looking at numbers, right? Every single person it's really important to have those basic academic skills in order to succeed in any job these days, because all jobs to some extent are being connected by machines and data at this point. So the second thing I wanted to mention is what Alan talked about is literacy. And that's also tied to communication, right? And communication is verbal and written communication skills. And the other thing is comprehension. So my job today, and I look at most of the people working for my company and the companies that we partner with, all day long we're writing, right? Communicating what our ideas are, translating them into material that people can understand and comprehend. If you're actually in marketing, right, you're having to write reports, and you're having to write value propositions of how you're going to explain your product to a customer. We're writing blogs if you're in marketing. So writing is such a critical skill. Today, whether it's email or we are slacking or we are texting, this is how we communicate with customers. This is how we communicate with employees. You're an HR professional. Communication is key. You throw any job at me, communication is going to be key. So that again ties to your reading, writing skills that is so evident and so entrenched in everyday aspect of work life, right? And the comprehension part is really, really important, right? It's about listening and understanding what the other person is saying and meaningfully being able to respond. Same thing. Somebody writes you an email, your customer writes you an email. You don't know how to comprehend it well, and your response is not aligned to what they're saying, then you're going to be in big trouble, even though your technical skills are on par, right? So that's really what we are hearing from employers is, how do you balance some of these human skills? And some of these human skills are so connected to the academic content that's being taught. And that's the main point I wanted to make. But also the other thing that we see employers, when they connect with the classroom, is bringing relevance to what they're learning in the classroom, right? Okay, another example is, this was a CTE classroom learning about pneumatic devices. They're working on a project. Then they're now able to say, okay, they were able to see how at a plant in Arlington, General Motors, how they're able to use hundreds of pneumatic devices in actually building a car. And suddenly everything connects. There are tons of resources and tools available for CTE educators to say, how do we help students see those connections in the real world, so we can help them sort of connect the dots and understand how what they're learning in the classroom actually is applicable in the real world as well. So hopefully that answers the question, Jennifer.
Oh, thank you so much, Shabri. Yes, and that leads me right into our second question, which I'm hoping Deborah's going to share a couple slides with us, because the next question that we had relates to, so how do we actually do this? And because Deborah has so much experience working with teachers and instructors on integrating their content, she has a couple ideas, I think, for us on how teachers can actually do this from that industry aspect. Deborah?
Thank you. I lost my slides from our practice session, so give me 1 second, please.
Otherwise, I can share them if you need me to.
If you have them, that would be great, because mine have just gone to the wayside.
Okay. Hang on.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll stick on this first slide. So when we look at academic integration and the process of going through and aligning the relevant and integrating the relevant literacy, math, and science concepts in context. So we're not leaving the CTE course behind. It is beginning with the CTE course, and we're looking at where the natural integration of the literacy, math, and science can help deepen their understanding and transfer those skills across the academic and technical career fields. Part of how we go about doing that is making sure that our formative assessment processes become part of the classroom process. So rather than just summative grades only, in other words, end of course grades or end of section grades, we're looking at making sure that we have this formative collaboration with our students, that we are providing feedback and giving them information as they are going through this process. The students have the opportunity to improve continuously when that kind of concept is in place. So by providing feedback and using the iterative process, strategies become part of the classroom. They become part of the culture. They become part of the CTE department, and overall they become part of the school culture. One of the things that we want to make sure that we be aware of is the intent of integrating academics within the context of the CTE is not meant to be a stop, drop, and do academics. It means that you've spent some pre-planning time with content experts that are able to assist the CTE teacher in moving through and integrating those relevant content areas within the CTE context. Next slide. So when I want to give you an example of what this would look like in a descriptor. So we want to jump right in with an example of rigorous assignment with integrated academics. This particular course, Energy and Power, is from SREB's Advanced Career Curriculum. We begin with the essential question, and in this essential question, you can see how can we design a mini hydroelectric system for homes and farms. Now, this is a high school curriculum. So we're asking students to learn the items that they need to know academically, as well as in their CTE field collaboratively, so that we can allow them to be able to solve a question and answer a question of this status. So we begin with the essential question, and it takes the students about 3 to 6 weeks to answer this question. This is done in project-based learning style. And so the students are using the problem-solving process in order to be able to answer this question with a lot of research and development in between there. So the actual description has more detail. This is just a slight descriptor to kind of give you a taste of what a high-powered CTE project would look like. And in order to integrate the academics, we want to make sure that the instructors have a roadmap or some kind of idea on what the behaviors of the teacher would be, what the behaviors of the student would be, and what are some of the teacher's plans and potential student artifacts that come from this kind of planning. So here, these are the powerful CTE instructional practices. Number 4, so there's a variety of practices, but this one is particular to the integration. Notice there is a summary of number 4 at the arrow. Behaviors, those are descriptions of teacher actions that directly just support what we call the PIP, which is in powerful instructional practices. You'll notice also that there's a column for student behaviors. These are the descriptors of actions that students are doing if the PIP is in place. And the last one talks about the artifacts, the classroom lesson plans or student artifacts that can be reviewed that become part of a student's portfolio. And in this last slide, we're going to talk a little bit about the idea, first of all, that teaching is an amazing profession, a profession that creates all other professions. And keep in mind too, that we need to recognize and understand that we're not expecting CTE teachers to be science teachers, math teachers, literacy teachers, or whatever the integrated academics are found within their program of study. What we are asking them to do is to shift their thinking to collaboration. CTE teachers have an obligation to make sure students understand the academic relevance associated with their CTE program of study. That you're not expected to be science, math, or ELA teachers, but rather a CTE teacher who integrates science, math, and ELA into your lessons. Your goal is to help your students become more scientifically literate, which is about how to approach problems and ideas, not solely how much they know about the academic project. And we have found over time that this works best when the collaborating academic teacher is also doing the same CTE lesson in their academic class. Thank you, Jill.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And that's going to bring us to our last question, which, hang on, I'm going to pull up my slides here. Which is, how can teachers and instructors integrate their academic curriculum into daily lessons and make students cognizant of these academic skills in the skilled trades? And since we have a skilled trades expert here, I'm going to have Scott answer that final question. But just to reiterate some of the things that Deborah just discussed, which really is getting to the core of this and getting to the core of the committee that we will be forming. So I am going to just put in a plug for that. I'm going to also ask the panelists right now, if you have a minute, if you wouldn't mind putting your email addresses, and I will as well put my email address into the chat so that all of the folks that are on the call right now, as well as those that see the webinar, have all of our email addresses and can get in touch with any one of us. So please put that in the chat right now. But I will have Scott right now talk a little bit about how we look at academics, because I think one of the particular areas that's difficult is the skilled trades, because in health science, we know those courses, anatomy and physiology, pathophysiology, health sciences are part of science. Students often get science credit for taking those courses. The same goes for some of our arts classes. Students are getting certain art credit for some of those classes. Some of the business classes, finance classes, they're getting math credit for that, engineering credit. Sometimes they also dual with math credit. But can you talk to us a little bit about, Scott, the skilled trades and how we can approach that?
Sure. Thanks, Joe. I don't know if I'm an expert, but I know enough to be dangerous. I have the fortunate opportunity to work with hundreds of skilled trades teachers from all over the country. And so I really am able to get into their classrooms, get into their heads, get in their thinking. And some of these teachers do all this very well. To Deborah's last slide, that was something I reinforced all the time when I was a principal. You know, you're not the math teacher, you're not the English teacher, but you sure are teaching those subjects within your content area. And I think I'll be on the next webinar where I'll talk more in detail how we made that happen. But what Sabri was saying about reading, writing, communication, that's so critical. And that's how I incorporated literacy every single day in our skilled trades. Is we had, you know, kind of the bell work or the sponge activity, whatever you call it, the opening activity, because the kids always started in the classroom, even if it was just for 10, 15 minutes, they would start in the classroom before they went to the shop. And we always had a reading or writing exercise. And again, I can get in more detail of that next time, but it is so critical. And when you talk to industry folks, one of the number one things I hear a lot is communication writing skills are terrible. I mean, auto mechanics people have to write shift reports. they have to, construction people have to give bids, give quotes, especially if you're in the construction management. So there are ties all over the place. And I do want to take a quick second to share our foundation website. If you haven't been on the website, you should be able to see the address, harborfreighttoolsforschools.org. And this is really geared to skilled trades exclusively, in automotive, welding, construction, manufacturing. Those are the areas we really support. And it can be tough. There can be blockages with some teachers. Like I said, some of these teachers do this naturally and they do it very well. Others are very resistant to it because we know a lot of our skilled trades teachers were really good with their hands and really good working in the shop when they were in school, but many got turned off to education, and some had a real struggle finishing high school, and academics integrated with their content is a way to hook them in and let them see the value. So this website is just all sorts of resources. One of the things we do every year under resources, my web's a little slow. One of the things we do with Harbor Freight Tools for Schools is we do a $1 million teacher prize every single year. And we have over 700 teachers apply for this $1 million prize. We announce 18 winners. 3 of them receive $100,000. They receive $70,000 for their school and $30,000 for their pocket. And the other 15 receive $50,000, $35,000 for their school, $15,000 for their pocket. Of these winning teachers, and we're up to about 90 now, we're going to be going into year 6. We've had 5 years of winners, and we do a teacher network. But these resources are available for all skilled trades teachers around the country. So 2 things. First, applications will come out in March. Encourage your skilled trades teachers to apply for that, because at minimum, it's a great professional development activity. And a lot of these resources here, I just picked up curriculum resources. You can filter them by infographics. Right here, you can see how you can filter all topics. But this is a curriculum. All these little videos, these are from past years of our prize applications. One of the exercises they have to do is they have to watch one of these learning modules, we call them. And they're anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes long. Nothing's longer than 15 minutes. And they have to watch the learning modules and then reflect on what connects to them currently in their skilled trades program. And the second question is, what new ideas might spark to them? So you'll see there are many topics, anywhere from passion, social, emotional, business. Turn your skilled trades classroom to business, the entrepreneurship, tons of academic in there, student design learning, soft skills. We all know that. Geometry and construction. This is one of our winners actually from this year, but that's a big program that Scott Burke here has done around the country. I think many of you have heard of CTE, math and CTE. This is a deeper dive into the math and CTE program. Elliot Washer is very good at student-centered learning activities. He's with Big Picture Learning. So all these units, these are great little professional development activities for your skilled trades teacher, because you might have difficulty convincing them why the academic piece is important. So I would encourage you to have them delve in. You can check them out yourself. There's a few related to academic integration. And like I said, when I talk next time, I will get more into the weeds of how we did with the skilled trades. We really concentrate on math and literacy. When I spoke about the literacy, the math and construction is really easy. I mean, and what if any of you guys have done math and CTE, you know, a lot of it's just terminology. You know, that pairing a math teacher with a construction teacher, what a geometry teacher calls slope, a construction teacher calls pitch of a roof. So they're teaching the same things, and they're just often using different languages and different terminology. So matching that terminology, matching that curriculum, and to top it off, and again, I'll talk about this more next time, is getting the academic credit. And since I was administrator in this field, there's lots of little tricks and hoops to jump to allow your teachers to offer academic credit as well as CTE credit, but that's another discussion. So I think I'll stop there, but just know that so many opportunities out there, and lot of your teachers are probably doing this and they don't know it. So. I'll stop.
And that's what I was going to capitalize on also. And I do want to put in a plug for Harbor Freight Tools for Schools, because I've been fortunate enough to have been a judge the past, 3-4 years for that teacher contest in the schools to earn the funds. And it is those teachers, because we have quite a extensive rubric when we do the scoring. And a lot of the questions are geared to how much academics is being integrated into the classroom. And I know those teachers that always go to the top of the list. And, of course, everything's blind. We don't know who we're scoring. We don't know where they're from. We just know the answers to their questions. And there's quite a few people that are scoring that. It's not just me. It's a whole bevy of people from different backgrounds. But I do see that over and over again in those folks that are correctly integrating academics, and they can speak to it. And what Shabri was saying about the communication, they're actually able to communicate it and expand on how they do integrate those skills and what the students are learning, with examples of how the students have been successful once they've learned those skills, once they've learned the academic skills within the skilled trade. So I think that's really important. Well, that's bringing us right to about 45 minutes. We do want to see if there's any questions that can be answered, but I'm going to take a minute. Do I have any final comments that some of the panelists might have thought of? I'm going to put this last slide up also for, let me share my screen. And can everybody see this last? This is everybody's email address. If you didn't get it from the chat, it should be in the chat also. But if anybody needs to see this, and I wanted to make sure this was going to be part of the webinar, also panelists, we're all correct on this. But do I have any final comments from any of the panelists that some of the thoughts of others might have brought up to the panelists?
Jill, the one thing I didn't quite realize was the importance that literacy would play across when Deborah went, when everybody spoke and things like that right there. So I think that, that, like I said, that is sort of at least my own personal background. And I think that maybe it awakens in me an idea that probably even more of a cross-pollination mentality of really reaching out with your English teachers and things like that. One of the things that was so instrumental, somebody said to me once when I was focusing on like a Dostoevsky novel and teaching like big literary concepts, and a kid looked at me and said, if I never read this book, it's not going to make any difference in my life. And I thought he was being, he was about to insult me about my curriculum right there. He said, but if I don't know how to read, I'm screwed. Right. And it was like, and it made that it was like a changing moment for me, because sometimes I think our colleagues on our campuses and things like that, they get so focused on what they have to teach, what they want to do. And in the world of literacy, so many of us came to become English teachers because of our love of reading, right? We want fables and we want allegories and we want the great books and To Kill a Mockingbird and things like that. But the disconnect of the pragmatism of what was being talked about, at NEPRIS, like the focus on communication, on nonfiction, on sifting through. And Deborah, you pointed out. So I do, I guess I could share one quick thing. I do have some legacy items from my own previous life that might be of help, just to be of service right here, if people are interested at all, which is about one of the things that I always found was really important was we do a lot of concise writing in the professional world. You know, if you send an email that is 500, lines long and things like TLDR, too long, didn't read type of thing. So how do you, be concise and be effective in things like that? So if you're interested in any of tools that might be of help right here, I do have some stuff at shortshortbig.com. But you can also just ping me in the chat and things like that. If I could be of any help. And even, one of the things that makes me go back to the workshop is maybe some more overt literacy units on some of the things that the other panelists have talked about. Because really, at the end of the day, educators, we need real tools to teach the students. The philosophy is great, but like, what do I do day to day in the classroom? And I think that's the one thing I like about all of us. It seems like we're really focused on rolling up the shirt sleeves and the meat and potatoes of what's important.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I just saw
Jill.
a question. Oh, go ahead,
Oh,
Shabri.
sorry, I just want to add a quick comment. So when we're looking at, okay, all of this makes sense, but how do I integrate it into the classroom? One of the common things we see across all CTE classrooms engaging with industry is your capstone project presentations, right? I mean, your capstone project presentation is like a mini entrepreneurship course, no matter what CTE pathway you're in. And that's a great place, especially if you're having students engage with industry during the capstone project presentation, have them present their final projects and all of this. So from writing up what your idea is to communicating it to presenting it to industry, that capstone project presentation is a resource that's available to every CTE educator to integrate some of this academic content and application of math and literacy that we've actually talked about.
Great. Thank you, Shabri. So do we have questions? Megan, I'm going to ask you to come back on. Well, I see a question from John Pritchett. Yeah, there are several. What are your thoughts about teacher externships into industry?
I mean,
my personal thoughts is every teacher should be doing externships in industry. Some of the industry experts, you want to answer that one?
Yeah, I can talk to this because this is very fresh. We're sort of launching a whole new teacher professional development and externship program with industry, because one of the things we realize as we're doing this work of connecting students and industry is less than 1/3 of the CTE teachers come with any industry experience themselves. And as we're working with different companies are now offering teacher externships, and it's becoming more and more relevant and mainstream. So if anyone is interested in learning what that looks like, I'm happy to take it offline. You have my email ID.
Thank you.
And Jill, I'd add, a lot of skilled trades teachers come from industry. It's just the opposite. More come from industry than don't. And a lot of them keep current by they either own their own businesses or they work in the summer at shops or job sites. So my pitch would be, I used to try and get my academic teachers to externships. How great for a math teacher to get on a construction site and see where the Pythagorean theorem's being used and that sort of thing. So that's where we pushed it.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Alan. That's where we see most of the core curriculum teachers doing teacher externships, because that data that I shared is for all teachers, not necessarily CTE.
Exactly. And I agree with that, because I often feel that CTE is core academics, and the teachers that are teaching in the math and the science and history and so forth, they're just teaching a content of knowledge, but we're teaching the core. We're actually putting the application to that core content. And so when we look at it in the reverse sense, that CTE teachers are the core teachers, I think we get a different lens and we get a different view, because we are the people that are preparing the next generation for their future careers. Any other questions that we might have that I didn't see? Megan, did you see anything?
I I think we've touched on everything. If not, everybody's put their emails in the chat, and I'll be sure to add mine right now. I can always connect you with anybody as well. And we are just so grateful for such an informative, engaging presentation today. We really want to encourage everybody who attended today to come back for part 2 and part 3, where we the registration is on that same link I just dropped in the chat for all 3 of those. And be sure to invite your colleagues and friends to join these because they're open to non-members and members alike. So with that, I just want to thank our panelists for their time and all our attendees as well. We know your time is very valuable. And Jill, thank you for putting these together.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, panelists.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.